Okay, we will get started. So, thank you for joining us today for this athlete member huddle session on Welcome to Ski Spec, the Athlete Perspective. I am Dr. Brittany Derecha, and I am the Member Services Manager for individuals at Move United. My pronouns are she, her. I'm a female with brown hair, and I'm wearing a black t-shirt and glasses. My Zoom background is a bookcase, and I'm very excited to be here with you all today. A few things before we get going. This session is being recorded. The recording will be posted on our YouTube channel as unlisted and in the event archive section of the member hub. Everyone is muted, but if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A or in the chat or come off of mute. Without further ado, I'd like to hand it off to Meredith Bradford, a 10-plus year athlete at the Hartford Ski Spectacular and our presenter for today. Thanks, Meredith.
Hello, my name is Meredith Bradford. Before I say anything else, if
Okay,
anyone,
I'm not hearing anything.
wait, am I muted?
You're not, Meredith. I can hear you. Maybe whoever is saying that they can't hear, maybe go out and come in again.
Should I
Go ahead, Meredith.
continue or?
Yeah, go ahead.
Um, so sorry about that. My name is Meredith Bradford. I am a white woman with short brown hair. I'm in a power wheelchair, so if you hear any squeaking or anything throughout the presentation, I apologize, and please feel free to ask me to repeat anything at all if you have any trouble hearing what I'm saying. You can go with it. You can do the slide. Also, you'll hear me ask for the slide changes. Those are being done on the back end for me. So the first thing you're probably wondering is, who am I and why am I the one speaking with you today? I got involved with ski spec when I was 20. When my first one, I first heard about it when I was 19. I was a freshman at the University of Illinois, and my journey there, as all of you have had a journey to get to the point that you are with the event right now, was very unique. Everybody has their own journey to get to this point, and for many of you, if this is your first ski spec, I cannot stress enough that this is only the very beginning. To give you a brief synopsis of my journey, I was on an able-bodied high school ski team, and a video of me from our senior trip made its way to Ski Spec and to many of the coaches out there. They were interested in kind of in my story and how I was skiing. I'm a tethered fixed rigger biskier. I'll explain a little bit more about that in a second. And basically, I got a phone call from my high school coach saying, "Hey, we're giving you a year and you're going out to Colorado." I started skiing when I was 6 years old, so I'd already been doing it for a while, but this is on relatively small mountains in upstate New York. So getting out to the Rockies for the first time was a bit of a shock, but completely opened my eyes to what truly is possible in this sport. To give you a visual description of the image, this is from my first ski spec. My coach, Chris, is behind me on tethers, which are basically two straps uh, near my shoulders. He's not directly attached to my ski, it's only by the straps. And I'm in something called the bi-ski, which is I'm sitting down. There's two skis underneath me. And in this picture, which will be relevant in a second, there's two little skis on the side, which are called outriggers, and a bunch of foam kind of everywhere, all over my body, holding my fitting into the ski. You can go and do the slide. So I'm gonna start with the image here on this slide. Um, this is from my most recent ski spec last year, from our race, which happens at the end. Again, I'll get back into that in a moment. I am in a very different ski in this picture, a little bit closer to the ground, a lot more upright, and there's a lot less random foam I'm still being tethered, but my outriggers are now off. I'm very, very proud of this because it means that my physical body and my strength have progressed enough to where I don't need as much help balancing anymore to get into my turns and subsequently out of them. So this just gives me a little more freedom to get a little bit closer to the gates and things like that. So when I was putting this presentation together, the first question that came into my mind was, what is ski spec? The answer to that question is extremely hard to put into words, but I will do my best. It can mean a lot of different things to different people. For some, for some of you, it might be your first time ever doing a snow sport. For some of you, it might be your first time doing so post-injury. For some of you, it may be something like me, where you grew up doing it somewhere else, and now all of a sudden you're in the Rockies. So there's a lot going on within this one event, and that's okay. That's kind of the beauty of it. Um, so it's anything from first-time skiers and snowboarders to an elite competitive training opportunity some for some who have Paralympic, national, and international aspirations on racing circuits and various other types of racing. Um, for me personally, to give you the personal answer, what it is for me is really everything. I define my year around this event, and I have for the past 12 years now. It's become an opportunity for me to pursue something that there's no other event in the world that will allow me to pursue this the way I can at Ski Spec. Um, but I think I've grown into that. When I first got there, it was I was very shy. I was slightly in over my head. I had never seen a mountain like that in my life. Um, and I figured it out. And now I have the opportunity to do things like this and speak to others who are now on that journey. Um, so really the point is that it is whatever you make it to be, and it is however you fit into this tremendous event that's anything from lessons to racing and everything in between. That sort of that line, there's all sorts of different steps within that line. Some people start in racing, some people start in lessons, get to racing. Some people may stay in the lessons. Whatever it is to you, that that's all right. We're all in one event. You can do this. So a big thing I wanted to bring up was a couple of pointers for those of you who haven't been to the event yet. If anybody has, you may have experienced some of this. Feel free to put your experiences in the chat if you have any tips for anybody based on any of this or anything else. The first thing is altitude's a huge factor. A little bit of a backstory. I am from New Jersey, so I am literally from sea level. Very, very literally, only a couple feet above it. The mountain, actually, I should say, the resort that we ski out of, so the base of our mountain is 9,600 feet in the air. Okay, that's really, really high. So if you have not been to the mountains, and for those of you that have been to the mountains on the East Coast or other parts of the country, that doesn't necessarily count. If you have not been to the mountains out west, you will feel a difference. Um, we are about 3 weeks, actually, we are 3 weeks to the day today until we start skiing. So the biggest thing I can tell you is start that preparation for your body now. I start mine about a month to a month and a half out now, just to make sure that I am 100% completely good to go. And two things, rest and hydration. Drink water, drink Gatorade, rest as much as you can. Again, start that now. The event schedule, which is on the SkiSpec website, it's going to look like a lot. When you first look at the schedule, it's going to look like you're moving all over the place. There's constantly something, and there is. Um, but if it's your first time, I advise you to take advantage of everything. Take advantage, learn as much as you can, be a sponge, meet people, do everything you want to do. However, take care of your body, particularly for anybody doing race camp, any kind of race training, be it formal, informal, wherever you are on that journey. If you're doing racing, you're trying to get drills in, you're trying to get working, be careful, take care of yourself, because you'd rather miss one thing than be out for a whole day. Right? I had a friend a little bit ago. You know, people may be under the weather, they may get sick. They come out of their skis for a day, they're good to go the next morning, and we're back at it. So just be aware of that. Um, but at the same time, I don't say any of this to scare you. Take advantage of it, but just listen to yourself. Your body will tell you what it needs. For the image description, this is just a picture of the actual mountain in Breckenridge we will ski on, and there's a bunch of wind and snow kind of blowing all over the place. That it brings up a good point. Weather-wise, condition-wise, if you have not skied out there, it can get real cold real quick. Um, so just be prepared for that. There will be a lot of wind, sometimes for communication. As I said, I have a tether, so my tether sometimes, if we're doing certain drills, will call turns out to me. If it's super windy, that may become an issue to hear. So just have maybe an alternate means of communication. In my case, oftentimes he will follow my head. So if I lean my head this way and I'm initiating to my left, he now knows that. Granted, we've worked together for a couple of years. Um, but just be prepared for alternate means. That way, layers, have water bottles with you on the mountain if you need them. A lot of the athletes will have one or a couple instructors with them, particularly in the learn to ski. Um, they're very willing to carry things for you if you need them. They all have giant pockets. Um, racers, I know you guys have uh, lockers and stuff like that where you can leave things, just go back to them when you need them. Don't be afraid to do that. You can go. Uh, so more on the logistical end, once you're there, couple things to note. First of all, the image is the Ski Spec logo. It says Ski Spectacular, Breckenridge, Colorado, with a blue picture of the mountain. You're gonna see that everywhere within the resort. That's a good thing. A, it means that we are a giant group. We're extremely welcomed by everybody out there. Um, and when you see that logo, it's going to help guide you to where you need to go throughout the event, but also more specifically what I want to talk about now is when you get there. The registration process for most of you, if you're arriving at the beginning of the event, will be in like a big conference room. Again, you'll see this logo on the floor everywhere usually. Um, and they'll guide you through different tables. You'll get a couple things that I specifically want to point out. One of them is what we call a bib. It's basically like a cloth that you tie around the outside of your jacket. There'll be different colors to signify different parts of the event, and you'll write your name on your bib. Biggest thing I tell you, do not lose any of the stuff they give you. You'll get your bib to go out in so that you're recognized part of the event. For cameras, be sure to smile. If you don't want to be in the pictures for whatever reason, that can be documented as well. So just let people know, and they'll take care of that for you. But you'll always have that on when you're on the mountain, and then you'll always have a name tag when you're off of it, just to basically show that you're with the event. As far as any of the non-skiing sorts of events, you'll need the name tag and or wristband and or both on you just to check so that they know. I've had friends that have had to go back to hotel rooms to get into different stuff if they're newer, so just be aware of that. Um, one big thing, anybody with paper lift tickets. So if you do not have a season pass or the 5-day adaptive pass, you'll be getting, if you got it during registration, you'll be getting the paper rip-off lift tickets that go on your jacket with those little zip tie looking plastic things. So for those, A, keep the bottoms with you. Make sure you don't lose those in case there's an issue on the mountain. B, the lift tickets will change out, I believe, every day, usually for the paper tickets. My apologies, I haven't had them in a while. Um, so for those, make sure you change them and make sure they're visible to the scanners because those are not tied to your name. So if you lose one of those, that's a day of skiing, right? So that's very, very, very valuable. Um, One little trick that I've learned, usually there's either a little bag involved in the registration. I just put everything in there, or just have a gym bag with you. Anybody that may use a wheelchair, pro tip, just leave it on the back of your chair. That's a great idea. Um, and the last thing is any tickets for the either any of the banquets or anything like that. Those are paper as well, not assigned to your name. Do not lose them. Um, I know I'm saying not to lose a lot of stuff, but again, just find a good spot. And then it'll all be there for you. As far as again the I'll go over the non-skiing events, the social stuff first, actually, and then we'll get to the on snow part. For the social events, I know we're doing a couple of them. There's usually a theme party, I believe. I was told this year it's a rock and roll theme, so feel free to do that. And that's where you get to really go around and meet people, have a good time. Uh, Not only socially but also from a networking perspective, that can be huge as well. There are phenomenal opportunities to meet people from all over the adaptive sports industry at this event. I have gained countless connections, mentors, including but not limited to Paralympic champions and the maker of the new ski that I am now in after spending 20 something years in that original ski that you saw. This will now be my second season in the new one. And the guy that invented it, I met at Ski Spec, and he helped me to dial in my setup. So just to give you an example. Um, as far as the on snow days, there are 5 of them. There are 2 sessions per day. That is a lot of skiing and or riding. Okay, let me just start right there. So, like I said, it's a lot. Just know what you signed up for. Know where your body's at. That kind of thing. Anybody in the Learn to Ski program, there's a big room that you'll go into to find your instructor every day. Sometimes it might be different. You may not have a consistent instructor for one reason or another. Maybe you're working on a different skill. Maybe your instructor is not there for the full week. I've had that happen as well, but just be aware that you might be with different people. Um, some people are with you for the full week. If you do get word of that, like say the same staff is with you the whole time, you might find a spot that's easy for you to set up if you are, say, in a monoski and you might need a little more room, or you have a visual impairment and your guide likes them in a certain spot. You'll figure out what works for you. Um, so just keep in contact with your staff. They'll help you out. It's a very, very helpful, particularly on the instructors. On the Learn To side, everybody's very, very helpful. It's a lot of people. That's where you'll often have multiple instructors per person, or there might be small groups of people that have similar backgrounds or disabilities, ways they might ski, things like that. People in race camp, you guys are in a whole different floor. Um, so you'll have all the room in the world to kind of spread out, do what you got to do. Timing is determined by what part of the event that you're in. Um, as far as kind of the madness in the morning a little bit, it's a lot of fun because you get to say good morning to everybody. You get to see all sorts of different equipment go out. Ask the questions. If you see something interesting, this is not a place where it is a bad thing to go up to somebody and ask a question. I know in some instances, in shall we say the real world, um, that is sometimes somewhat frowned upon, right? You might be afraid to ask the wrong question. That is not this. Um, so just feel free to, and you might even try different equipment, right? Somebody may start in a biski at the beginning of the week, and they might see that you have really, really good balance, and then try you in a monoski. Or you might start as a four tracker without riggers, on your hands, and then wind up on two tracker, wind up on ski bike, or wind up on any number of different things. Um, the point is, all five of those days do not have to be the same at all. They can be dramatically different. Um, you can go exploring in different parts of the mountain. Obviously, if you have a one-on-one instructor, that's also up to the instructor, depending on skill level. Um, but just every day is different, and it's in a good way I say this, but be ready for anything in a positive way because you might even surprise yourself with where you go on the mountain or what you're able to accomplish. For me, the first time they took my outriggers off, I looked at my coach like he was insane because I'd been skiing with outriggers on for 20 something years. And he looked me right in the face. He said, "Hey, you don't need these anymore. I'm taking them off. I haven't used them since." Um, so that's just a little way of how those days can be very different, but that can also be a very good thing. You can go ahead with the slide. So I wanted to end this on kind of a more overarching, lighthearted, but also very serious note, and kind of my final words of wisdom to anyone experiencing this event for the first time. I did ask a couple people for their input on this, so thank you to those of you that did that. Um, the people that, or some of the examples of people that I've asked for with this are very, very experienced tether people and very, very high level racing coaches, some of you may work with. Uh, the first and really biggest thing is this event is what you make it. Ski Spec truly is what you make of it. And it is the best week of the year for those of us that have been doing it for, you know, forever, it feels like. Um, and if it's your first time, it's gonna probably be one of the better experiences of your life. It certainly was for me. The first time I did this, no exaggeration at all, it completely, completely changed my life. Um, for for the better, and I've continued on that journey now. Um, it's just as much about the people as it is about the sport. Yes, you're gonna progress in the sport. Yes, you're gonna learn new skills. You're gonna push yourself in some cases beyond what you may have even believed is possible. You will be supported the entire time by the greatest coaches in this country, some of them even international, and also the greatest, particularly for the racers, teammates that you can look up to, and they can show you the ropes. They can show you what they've done and give you little tips. Even for the lessons, you may find somebody that's been in lessons for a few years that skis or snowboards the way you do, and you can learn from them. It's not only just the coaches or the instructors teaching the athletes. It's so much of the athletes teaching the athletes. It's so much of the athletes communicating back to the coaches what's working, what's not, what we like, what we don't like, how can we adjust. You have that entire week to get to Friday for those of you who are involved in the racing part of things. That will be on Friday morning. So you have that entire week to dial yourself in, to learn as much as you can, and to make as many connections as you can. And then it will culminate in what is a beautiful, sometimes crazy, in a good way, Friday morning that just allows all of us to, to shine, to show what we've learned and to show that to kind of the next generation that's going to come in behind us. That's that's something very, very important to me, particularly on the race day, is to show what is possible because someone like me in a bike ski, that's not a thing. I'm not able to race competitively outside of this event. So this event for me is a big, 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 big deal. Um, and there's a lot of people for which this event is a big, 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 big deal. So that allows that to kind of come through. And like I said, it's the not only the networking, but just the friends that you're gonna make. Some of the best friends that I've ever made have been from Ski Spec. We talk all the time, and we're just constantly looking forward to seeing each other again and getting to work together and work out together and continue to push each other to as high as high of a height, in some cases very literally, as we can. Um, as far as the networking, the professional side of it, like I said, the backgrounds of anyone you might even see, in a hallway, somebody may come up to you, hey, how you feeling in the monoski? How you feeling as a three tracker? All different sorts of questions. Those people that are going to ask you those questions are extremely knowledgeable in what they're doing. Talk to them, make conversation, give them your name, your email, whatever you might be comfortable with. Keep those contacts after the event. Ski Spec does not have to end when we all fly home. That's a big thing. It's it's a little bit for those of you that have done it, anybody on the call that has, it's a bit of a culture shock, when you go home because it doesn't always feel like real life in a weird way. And I know that sounds crazy if you haven't done it yet. Um, but it truly doesn't feel like real life. You're kind of in this bubble where everybody's beyond accepting, they're pushing you. And yes, I use the word accepting a lot, but they're also not going to hand you anything. They're going to expect you to push yourself and to learn yourself. That's what this is for. This is not, you're just going to get a free ride type. Granted, if you're just learning, obviously, yes. Again, there's a huge skill gap between the different parts of the event, but just be aware that it's not something that's going to be like, oh, you have a disability. Good job. Good for you. This is not what this is about. Um, and that to me is the biggest positive of it, probably. Just that I'm treated as an athlete. You will all be treated as legitimate and real athletes, no matter where you are on that journey. Um, as far as anyone that's on your first one, it does not, and hopefully it will not, have to be your last. I went out once. I had no idea if I'd ever make it back out. 12 years later, here I am. Um, so just keep an open mind to that. And like I said, the week truly can change your life for forever, but you have to allow it to do so. You have to let those experiences in, you have to let them sink in, and you have to allow it to change your perspective, change your way of thinking, change, in some cases, beginning with your own perspective and thoughts of yourself, of what your limits are. I promise you they will be challenged in a very good way. Um, to give a image description really quick, this is me with five different people. Two of them are my best friends from college who took me on the trip a few years back. One of them was my personal trainer, and then the other three are my on-hill staff. One was an intern. My head coach, who was Chris, the guy that had me in the beginning, he's actually from Canada, kind of infamously. Um, and then my friend Jess, who was one of the racing helpers that had a collegiate racing background. That was the most fun I've ever had on this trip. The race day did not go as planned at all. Um, it was kind of a mess, but it wound up being a good thing. When I say a mess, there was a lot of people that day, and I wasn't able to get my runs in essentially on time. Um, So that didn't work out so well. But the amount of fun that we had and the amount of support that I was given to say, you will get another shot at this. This is not the end of this journey. And it sure has not been. Um, so really just to close out, I said this the other day to someone that I'm very, very close to because of Skis Back. At this point, it feels like a family reunion. It really does. Um, and it's it's a family reunion. You're gonna learn so much about yourself, about others, about the sport, about people in general. Um, and just to carry that with you into, again, the quote unquote real world, I think that's truly been the power of it for me. It's allowed me to view myself as an athlete, as a legitimate athlete, not just somebody that does this as a hobby. Being from New Jersey, I'm not really able to ski much outside of ski spec, at least not at this level for sure. Um, but however, I am able to work out year round, working on balance, reaction time, all this. I've multiple personal trainers that work with me on that to almost, and this is not to sound like a negative, but almost to combat my disability, which for transparency, I have cerebral palsy. Um, so I have a lot of muscle spasms. I have to learn to control my muscles, and that takes a lot more effort than it would without the spasms. So just working on that, working on constantly bettering my understanding of my own body, it allows me to stay connected to the sport year round, even though I'm not on snow to this level very often. Um, so just to bring it back to, for me, that's how it's changed me and my life. It's given me the opportunity to constantly better myself for this event that means so much to me and to so many people around me. You can go ahead and do the slide. Uh, Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for allowing me to do this. To Move United, Dr. Britt, thank you guys so much. It's an honor to be in a position now where I'm able to share this story with others. Welcome to the Ski Spec crew, as we call it. Welcome, welcome, welcome. If anyone has any questions, I am absolutely an open book. Feel free to either come say hi even at the event. Again, I'm in a power wheelchair. I will have two assistants with me. I'm I'm not that hard to spot. And I have when I'm in my ski, I'll have a blue and orange jacket on. So feel free to say hi. Also, my email will be shared, Dr. Britt. You can let them know how you're gonna do that. But any questions, feel free. They do not have to necessarily be about you know, the event specifically. I'm a very, very open book, but thank you guys all so very much.
So before we close this out, we like to create some space if anyone has any questions that might be good for the group to ask Meredith while we're on here. So you can either come off of mute or put them in the chat, and we're happy to talk through those. And so, Meredith, I will start. So, you talk about how impactful Ski Spec has been for you. Obviously, 10 plus years later, you keep coming back. So, what makes Ski Spec different from other events that maybe you've attended in the past?
Um, I have never attended an event to this magnitude prior to Ski Spec, so I think the sheer magnitude of it speaks for itself in the sense of the types of connections I'm able to make with Paralympic champions, with the best coaches in the world. For me, it's the competitive side of it. It's the training side of it. It's the fact that I've seen myself progress in a race course to last year completing my first full length run in in under a minute, which I never thought was possible. I know for the monoskiers, two trackers, that seems slow on some instances, but when you're a tether biski, that I was very happy with that. So just the ability to continue to progress, um, and to just make the connections and get myself further and further ingrained within the sport. That's really what keeps me coming back.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. I know a few folks on here looking forward to returning and rejoining in that camaraderie, and others are looking forward to their first time. So thanks for sharing that. You mentioned things not going as planned, and so as much as we all love to do our best to make sure that we have everything in order, sometimes that just is not the case. So, can you talk a little bit about how you can shift your mindset when things don't go as planned, especially when folks are using this as a competitive atmosphere? It can be really easy to get down in our mindsets. So, how can we shift that focus to get back out there either the next attempt or the next day later in the week and just continue giving our best?
That's a great question. Again, I will take this more strictly from the competitive racing mindset, just because that's been my experience. Um, but I think if things don't go your way, any of the racers doing this particular race, typically our format is two runs and they count the quicker one. Um, so if one doesn't go great, you'll have another one. As far as drills go, things like that, when you might do a ghost run with a coach, something like that, where you're doing a course that's not like the actual course. So if you're doing, say, brushes, which are, for those of you that haven't done it, just smaller little gates on the ground. If you run them over, it doesn't matter. They're not going to hurt you. Um, so just don't be afraid to kind of push on those. Um, Figure out where your lines are, figure out where your turning radius is. Um, but just when things don't, if say something doesn't go beautifully, right? You know that you're going to get another shot. And for the racers that are doing circuit stuff after ski spec, this is only your first race. Okay? You'll have many, many more in the season. You'll have many, many more in your career. It'll come back. You might have to work a little bit harder to get back there. In my case, with this being the only shot that I get at a real race course, if it doesn't go well, yeah, it's gonna sting for a while. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. It stinks, but I think for me, knowing the people around me that are going to be okay with that and that are going to support me and make me laugh and say something dumb just to, you know, get me to laugh. And then even after on the Friday, if we, all get together after dinner and everybody's still gonna hug you, everybody's still gonna, lo love you and be proud of whatever you did do. So you know, don't beat yourself up too bad, but also on the flip side, learn from it and learn where you can get better, what you can control. Some of it will be out of your control. We raced one year in a full blown blizzard. Um,
Mm.
a few years back. So obviously that was not ideal, but we all kind of laughed about it, and it's it's still a great memory and amazing pictures to this day.
Yeah.
Does that answer
Thanks.
the question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you for that. Okay, so two questions have come through. One, any recommended items that people should have on their packing list when they're coming?
That's a
Obviously, you said the weather can kind of vary between wind and snow, blizzards. So, what
yep,
are some essentials that folks need to add to their list?
yep, that's a really good question. I probably should have had that in this to be honest. So thank you to whoever asked that. Um, Really just whatever you would ski in normally, for those that have done it before. If you have not skied normally or previously, you're gonna want multiple layers. You don't want anything fabric next to your skin. So like fleece, cotton, stuff like that next to your skin, because if your sweat can actually freeze. And that is very uncomfortable. Trust me. Um, So I think just having the right base layers with you and then layering over that. This way, if you do get a warmer day, when we say warmer day, we mean, maybe in the 30s, um, which is very warm on skis, at least for me. Um, but have the layers with you, have anybody that has multiple lenses for goggles, have those with you. Ask your coach what to wear based on the weather if you need to. Um, have warmers with you, hand and foot warmers. That's a really big one. Um, some people bring multiple sets of gloves, depending on how you ski. If you say you use poles, they might get, more beat up or whatever. In my case, something I like to have is multiple face masks. because I have one that I like to race in that has little holes for me to breathe easier. And then I have one that's warmer and one that's meant for like wetter conditions, so it doesn't stick to me. So I can just adjust that on the fly. I have my assistant coach often carry an extra one just in case I need to adjust. Trying to think any other, whatever you have personal equipment wise, bring it with you. If you have a helmet, if you have, boots, if you have whatever you may have, the ski spec staff will check it all for safety regardless. Um, and then whenever you don't have either rentals or anybody in a sit ski, your rentals is actually part of your initial event registration. Stand-up skis is separate, but if you're in a sit ski, make sure that that's in there. Um, Real quick, little word of wisdom to any sit skiers. Whatever you know about your setup already from previous experience, communication is key. Advocate for yourself, explain your own setup. Same for a stand-up skier. If you know your binding settings, if you know your, boot size, whatever you know is helpful. Sit skis, if you know your settings for your fitting, if you know where you like your hip guides, if you know any of that stuff, any of the VI skiers, if you know what sound you might like to follow. Just communicate everything. And I know that's not necessarily a hacking thing, but just something to keep in the back of your head, or bring whatever might make you feel comfortable. I'm bringing a custom foam insert that I'm having made that's gonna go into a rented ski, so it will fit me like a glove. So any equipment you have like that, if you have anything, if you do not, just ask the questions. There'll be a whole bunch of foam on multiple trucks, foam, duct tape, bungee cords, anything you can imagine. Um, all that will be there. If you know you use a lot of something, try to bring it with you. If you use duct tape, if you use anything like that, um, just have your own might be a little bit easier when there's a couple hundred athletes trying to get their fittings right. The more you have with you, the better. Does that, whoever asked the question, do you want any other further clarification? You good? Oh, and outfits for the social stuff, so opening, closing, if you're gonna come to any of that, theme party, that kind of thing. Just remember to have all that with you too.
Yeah. Thanks, Meredith. I'll be adding a few of those to my own list to bring, so
Fair enough.
appreciate. Okay, so the next one I'm going to combine two of the next question. So, number one, how is the breathing for the first time at high altitudes, especially not being a super athlete? And then, kind of in conjunction with that, how much water are you recommending folks to get while they're each day while they're at ski spec?
So again, full transparency. I I I have cerebral palsy. On top of that, I also have asthma. Um, so I have very, very compromised lungs. Um, the first time I went there, it's not easy. Um, Depending on where you're from, when you land in um when you land in Denver, excuse me, or you land in you land in wherever in the area you might be, you're gonna feel initially a little bit of that, but then when you get to the mountain, you are a little higher. Give yourself a little bit of time if you can before you go all the way up the mountain. If based on your travel plans, you do not have that time, just rest. Don't exert yourself. Even walking down a longer hallway for those who walk, um, may may feel a little bit more strenuous than it would at home. So just rest up, be prepared that it's gonna be, it's not, I don't want to say it's bad, it's just it takes more of an effort to catch your breath after what might seem like a very small amount of exertion. Um, Once you're actually skiing, again, it's a lot of skiing. Communicate with your coaches, take breaks when you need them. Um, for the racers and or anybody doing a full pull, meaning if you're skiing full days, all 5 days, just be aware of that, be prepared for that. As far as the water goes, um, I keep several gallons literally of water in my place that I stay in, between myself and my two assistants, it does get consumed very quickly. Um, always have a full water bottle with you when you go down for your session, when you go to any of the events, anything like that. Um, keep a water bottle with you and just constantly, whenever you feel you need it, just take a sip. I'm not saying chug a bunch of water all at once, because that's not good for you either. Because then your body, if you don't do that normally, then your body will be confused, right? Like if you don't do that in your normal life, and all of a sudden you chug a bunch of water, your body's not going to know what's happening to it. So just whenever you feel you need to, just sip. For anybody that has any like for me, for instance, I have to rely on a straw and I have to rely on my aide to give me a drink. So I'm constantly asking. It's okay. If you need help to get something, just ask somebody. There'll be water stations, usually in the actual resort too. Just use those. They're aware that it's a tourist destination for people that are not necessarily used to the mountains. And that is okay. So just constantly sip, don't chug, because then you might also get nauseous. And for the breathing, just if you have any sort of history of, if you have a breathing med with you, if you have inhaler or anything like that, you might want to keep it maybe in your jacket or give it to a coach. My rescue inhaler stays with my assistant coach, as an example. Um, so just be aware and don't be afraid to ask questions of any medical professionals as well before you take off. They might be able to help you out. I've gotten some good advice there as well.
Thanks for that. Moving a little more logistically, since you understand the structure and how all of the buildings are pretty much laid out, the next questions are about logistics. So, in terms of all the water that everyone should be drinking, sipping, and not chugging, where are the bathrooms in relation to where everyone will be? And then how is the transportation from the airport? What does that look like?
So I'll start with the bathroom situation. It depends on what part of like where you are logistically in the resort. The thing is huge. It's a multiple building resort. There's multiple ramps and multiple elevators everywhere. I promise you, if you have not been there, you will get lost at least once and wind up in the wrong elevator at least once. That that is okay. We've all been there. Um, so just there's signs also. Again, look for that logo. There'll be signs and arrows that'll say like learn to race camp, like race day registration, blah blah blah. There'll be signs everywhere to explain all that. So as far as bathrooms go, I know there's ones right by where we ski out of, like basically out of the resort. Um, Personally, I can't speak to that as much because I would just go like up to my room. My room is in the actual resort that we ski out of. Some people's will be, not everybody's. So for me, that's kind of a moot point, but I do know that there's a lot of them on different floors, different areas of the resort. The main one that a lot of people use is right by where we ski out. Transportation wise, from DIA up to the mountain, I so I travel with a lot of equipment. I travel with medical equipment, skiing equipment, all the above. Um, because of that, I've always done like a shuttle that I'm just on from DIA up the mountain. Um, but there's like group ones. I know Move United has some specific ones for the warfighters or for different groups. So just ask those questions as well. Particularly if you're a warfighter, ask ask one of the warfighter ambassadors or someone with Move United. They can direct you. I usually use Epic Mountain Express as the shuttle that I've used. Um, they've been good. Quick little word of wisdom: call them the day before each of the legs of your trip and make sure that they have you down for the correct time. I have been left in the resort, um, so just make sure that you make those calls. And also, if you're in a wheelchair, if you can or cannot transfer, they need to know that. Any additional medical equipment you have with you that might take up more space, they need to know that. Um, Again, this is a huge event. They know who we are. Don't be afraid to use the Ski Spec name, the Move United name. Believe me, I do that as well. Um, so thank you to Movie United for that. Um, and they'll set you up. And again, that's something where any individual questions, if you want to email me, you could always tell me a little bit more about who and what you're traveling with, and I might be able to lead you in a good direction. If you do not have that transportation like set now, I would do that pretty quick, honestly. Because if you're in a group shuttle situation and your flight comes in at X time, that shuttle that leaves to go up the mountain right after X might fill up because again, it's several hundred athletes. So you are not the only person that's going from DIA to Beaver Run on this day. Um, Anybody that comes back, future reference, I book my transportation, flights, shuttle, everything about 4 months in advance. No exaggeration. Um, so anybody that does this in the future, keep that in mind.
Thanks, Meredith, for that. And there's also some more logistical information on our website. If you just search Move United Ski Spectacular, you can find that. Candace, I see your message. I will look into the page that says it's not found, and I will reach out to you with that information. I already put Meredith's email in the chat, but I've just placed it in there again. If you'd like to contact Meredith, her email is Bradford Meredith, MERIDITH @gmail.com. And she has said that she would be happy to answer any of your questions. So please feel free to reach out to her, as well as if you see her or I at Ski Spec, we'll be happy to chat with you. Also a fellow New Jersey native, so we always love
Yes.
welcoming more folks into our circle. So with that being said, thank you everyone for attending. We truly appreciate your presence, and thank you so much, Meredith, for being here and educating us on what to expect at Ski Spec. Please remember that this recording will be available on our YouTube channel as unlisted and the Member Hub under the Event Archive section. We look forward to seeing you all at member exclusive events in the future. So thank you so much. Good night.
Thank you, everyone. See you in a couple weeks.